Welcome to Pacific Mystery School, and today we are talking about karma. So I will say that 2018 was the year of karma, and so during that year I also recorded at the beginning of that year a very comprehensive lecture on karma to look at what the year would bring. So that exists also. So some of the and that's on YouTube. So some of the things that I will talk about today will overlap with that lecture. So I just want to start with some pieces, some different pieces. So given that, Stephanie, that you brought up the idea that this is, karma is not in your other tarot decks, I'll just mention something about that. So we're talking about Tarot of the Spirit. Karma is a major card in Tarot of the Spirit. It is number 11. So in some other decks, okay, all of the tarot decks are going to have the position of karma. Like it's a position in the deck. So it's been called by different names, that position. For example, it's been called adjustment. Adjustment, like how are you going to make adjustments? How are you going to, when things are going in one direction and you want to make sure that it's going to turn out right, you make some kind of adjustment. Okay, so really what we're talking about is making a karmic adjustment, because we're talking about the cosmic law of cause and effect. Okay, so if you want to make an adjustment, you need to look at the cause. And you need to look at the cause, not only the cause that you're trying to put in motion, but the cause you are. What are you the cause of? And how can you work with those energies? So karma is about that. Another note on karma, if you look at the weight deck, which is the most commonly used deck, the 11 is going to be the same. It may have a different title, but it's going to be the same as the Tarot of the Spirit. If you look at the Crowley deck, there was a divergence. And I haven't mentioned this before, but Crowley had a revelation and reversed the position of the 8 and the 11 and on the tree of life. Okay, so all of these cards fit on the diagram of the tree of life. So he reversed those two positions. And when we were creating Tarot of the Spirit, so this is really an old story, but and I don't usually compare to other decks, but a tarot deck is a tarot deck is a tarot deck, basically. If it gets shifted and some people have a revelation that shifts the position or something like that of two different cards, it's out of a revelation that they have. Okay, so we were looking at, when we created Tarot of the Spirit, we looked at the positions on the tree of life of the 8 and the 11. So the 8 is strength. It's not always called strength. It might be called something else, but it's the same card and it's the same position. And Crowley talked about the idea of lust. And I was thinking of that this week because strength, okay, so this is parenthetical, what I'm talking about before launching more into karma. So strength is a healing card. And what we see on the strength card, it's connected with, though it's got the cat energy, which is like the Leo energy, it's cat energy. And then it's also got the snake energy or the serpent energy. So what do both of those have in common? So I'm diverging right now into strength for a minute. Okay, so what do both of those have in common? And what they both have in common, both the serpent and the cat, is they have the pounce energy, or it's the strike energy, the strike, the pounce. And so I've been thinking a lot about illness lately, and if you're going to transcend illness, we need to be able to have that kind of strike energy or pounce energy, the electrification that comes. It's also Kundalini energy. If you can follow that, it's like an electrified reaction that has to do with the will to live, the will to survive. So it could be passion, it could be lust, and we need that. That's a big part of understanding what strength is. Okay, so back to the reversal of the strength and the karma. We decided with the Tarot of the Spirit to stick with the earlier version before Crowley's revelation. And in some ways, those two, Waite and Crowley, were so central in the development of Tarot that by looking at all the hundreds of Tarots that came later, you can pretty much see which path the creator of that particular Tarot followed by looking at the position of the 8 and 11. Did they follow in the Crowley path? Did they follow in the Waite path? But actually, they're very similar paths. The reason that they're very similar paths is because both of those two decks were based on the Tree of Life. They were Kabbalistic Tarot decks, so all of the cards fit on the diagram called the Tree of Life, and they're placed there. So when we looked at the 8 and 11 and the difference between where they're placed, we actually realized that in either position, both could work. And so we decided to stay with the earlier version where the path of the 11, which is karma in our deck, we decided to call it karma to move toward a bigger kind of adjustment. And so we thought it would be clearer for people to understand if they got, we're creating what's going to happen in the future. We're creating the future. So where the karma is placed on the Tree of Life is, and where we place it, and this has taught me over and over and over and keeps expanding, is between the number 5s and the number 6s. Karma is the connecting path between the 5s and the 6s. And this is really important because the 5s are the place of difficulties, of essentially, we'll call it pain, suffering, old age, and death. And the 6s are the place of enlightenment, beauty, faith, harmony. So if we're in a hugely difficult situation, the questions that we ask ourselves can start to move us into a place of harmony no matter what is happening. So that's the idea, a space of harmony, a space of truth, a space of beauty in the number 6. Okay, so that's just a little note about strength and karma and the location of those two paths. So strength actually connects, you can see they're close because strength connects the 5s with the 4s. And karma connects the 5s with the 6s. So the strength path, we're going back and forth between things falling apart and then we rebuild them. That's the 4. The 4 is rebuild. So things fall apart, then we rebuild or we restabilize. So that's the path of strength, is restabilization. But in the path between the 5 and the 6, that's number 11, karma, what we're doing there is we're not going back and forth between break things up, restabilize, break things up, restabilize. We're going into a new layer of consciousness. So we're starting to work with whole new ideas once we start to move into the imaginative realm of how we can begin to create karma, how we can begin to create it. That reminds me of the whole idea of tarot reading, which I also love tarot reading. But I believe if people say, well, what's going to happen in the future? They could ask me this question, what will happen in the future? Okay, what do you want to create? That's really the answer. What do you want to create for the future? Because tarot is actually a better help. It's more helpful at figuring out how to create. I don't really believe in just a pure prediction like that. It's like, we're going to make it happen. What do you want to happen? Let's work on it. So what Tarot of the Spirit can help you do is figure out what it is you really want. And karma is part of that path. Okay, now I want to do another parenthetical sort of divergence into the Wheel of Fortune for a minute. So the Wheel of Fortune is number 10. So the idea that we arrive at in the Wheel of Fortune is that we want to be in the center of the wheel, and then we want to be able to move up and out from the center of the wheel. And if we are, if new energies are moving in toward us from the far edges, it's important for us to know which aspects on the far edges of the wheel are we drawn to. Like, what do we want to pull in to ourselves from the outer rim of the wheel? What's attracting us, or what's distracting us that we want to get rid of? Either way, but we want to be in the center of the wheel. So I came up with this new word for being in the center of the wheel that I really liked, and I shared it. I think I shared it on the lecture on the Wheel of Fortune, but I called it emulsification, because in the Wheel of Fortune, emulsification, the emulsifier, is the thing that binds together disparate forces and forms. For example, oil and water don't mix. So if we're going to bake a cake, we need an emulsifier, something that's going to hold them together, a mediating energy that chemically will hold things together. So that would be an egg yolk, right? The egg yolk is the emulsifier. So I just really got into this term emulsification. So then I'm thinking about karma, and the one that came so huge in my mind about a month ago was a word that I first saw about 30 years ago. It's not a word that's really in my vocabulary, but I saw a candle from China about 30 years ago, a red candle, for good luck, and good fortune. And it says on the candle, it says emolument. Is written on the candle in English, emolument. I'm like, emolument? What's that? Emolument? What's that? Okay, so what it means is, it means it's the process of grinding, of separating and grinding the grain, and it's like milling. Emolument, mol means mill, like milling. And being in the state of milling everything, which is very much like karma. When we stand back, we look at things, we consider them, and everything becomes grist for the mill as we move into a space of enlightenment, like everything that has happened to us. Then, so I was thinking about that, and I wanted to share that word with you. I love words, just emolument. What is that? What does that have to do with karma? Right, and then last week I saw on the news that our illustrious president has violated the emolument clause, and I'm like, what? What is that? Okay, and so emolument has something to do. There's an emolument clause which has to do with
his profiting and taking money from profiting and
profiting, and it has something to do with working the mill, like working the mill, grinding it, and maybe even grinding others into somehow participating with you. But it's called the emolument clause. And the more I thought about that, the more interested I became in the process of emolument, which is very much like karma. How are you going to work the mill? How are you going to process what's going to be grist for the mill? How much can be grist for the mill? How much is yours to own when you're in particular positions and things like that? How much is not yours to own? And figuring all this out is figuring out your own karma, because we are creating our own karma moment by moment by moment. Karma has a healing aspect like strength. That's why the two of those can work very well together. These questions of karma that have come to me in terms of illness, I was just mentioning with strength. Strength is great for healing illness because we need that life force energy welling up within us, the will to live with strength. The will to live is critical. Otherwise, we can just fade out. Okay, so these healing questions came to me also with karma. And the healing questions, which can move us from the 5, which is the place of pain, suffering, old age, and death, into the 6 are, if we look at what caused the illness, what is the cause of the illness? Something that's wrong in our life. I'm just calling it illness. The second one is, how does the illness serve you or serve us? Because there's a lot of reasons that illness can stay in place. And then the third part 3 is, are you ready to release it? And we can ask ourselves these questions around illness when it comes to karma or anything that's off in our lives, right? Anything that's off base. I also want to throw in with karma my favorite, which I work with a lot, which is the superhero questions. And the superhero questions, these are the questions that every single superhero deals with. What is your vision? What is your mission? What is your strength? What is your weakness? What is your backstory? Because our backstory is going to be leading us into this moment. And then how are we going to work with it? How are we going to develop our vision, our mission, and our knowing our strengths, knowing our weaknesses, and knowing what we're out to do and working with those energies. All of this is related to creating our karma. It's all about creating karma. If we're too close to the situation to be able to view it, because we're too much inside of it, like we're too much on the ground dealing with all the players in our lives, and we can't figure out what to do, and we don't know how to handle it, what we need to do is what I'm calling today is get off world. Like, in other words, get a bird's eye view, take off, get up in the air, and look down at our lives and look at all the players and look at ourselves as the action figure, superhero, get above ourselves and watch what this action figure is doing, and then figure out how we can take some steps to change that direction if it doesn't look good. Because we can see a lot more from a distance than we can when we're just caught up in our moment by moment by moment lives. Right now, for example, here where I live, we're in a series of blackouts where we have no power. Okay, so we could take this having no power. This is in the San Francisco Bay Area, right? Big shutdowns, big blackouts with the power company. And then all of a sudden, we have no internet, or something, whatever. Okay, that can be the greatest tragedy that ever happened. Unless we can get some distance from it, look at a bigger picture and start putting it all in perspective. So that would be part of the path of karma for us, is to back up and see it differently. It's like backing away from the whole tree of life and seeing the tree of life from a distance. This word karma is derived from the Sanskrit word kri, K-R-I. And kri means to do or to make. Karma, what karma is it's acts and deeds. All our actions weave a pattern. And in the weaving of this pattern, energy is never lost. But we learn how to use these energies in a way. What I want to say is in a way that involves a kind of conservation of energies. So if we understand our own values and we're really clear about that, we can conserve our energies and not get so hung up in things that otherwise seem like they are going to destroy our lives, like not having power, not having electricity for a few days. It is not the worst thing that ever could happen on this planet. Okay, so that's getting the bird's eye view to see that. There are different types of karma. One is called Immutable Karma and one is called Mutable Karma. Immutable Karma, those are the circumstances in which we find ourselves that we cannot change. like certain things about the past. For example, our parents. Generally, I mean, we have two parents, and those are our parents. I mean, we may not know who they are or something, but we still have two parents, and those are our two parents. So that's immutable karma. Mutable karma is everything that can change. Mutable karma is what we do about our parents, whether we like them, whether we don't like them, how we work with them, and so on. That's all mutable. And our mutable karma and realizing what we can change becomes the key to our freedom. The most important factor in the key to our freedom is, and inside karma, is the will to develop in new ways. Because otherwise, we are going to be stuck in a path, and this happens to us a lot, where we find ourselves stuck in a path of victimization. It feels like a cage of victimization. Well, you know, you had it this way, but I had it this way, you know, and I'm trapped by what happened. Okay, what about the will to transcend those circumstances and start changing our karma? Because we can do that. We can do that. We can choose freedom. We can choose freedom. But that requires a journey into the deep self. And I say that applies even if we are imprisoned, even if we are behind bars, you know, or whatever, we can still choose freedom. We can find out what that means for us to find the way that we are free. Karma is the teacher of teachers, which guides us through the long circuit of existence. And that is from Paul Case, who was one of my teachers. The object of the karmic path, when approached from a spiritual perspective, is to move into the flow of a larger will, a bigger will, a cosmic will, a universal will, and to let this cosmic sensibility, this cosmic sense of things, flow through us and into our works. And when we do that, we can escape the repetition of learning the same lessons over and over and over. And we can start taking on new lessons, higher lessons. So to learn these lessons, we begin to reflect. And we could say we could begin to reflect in the karmic mirror. To know the past with regard to this karmic mirror, we need to examine the present. And then to know the future, we need to examine the present also. That's a very Buddhist teaching. But when we look at all the actions we're taking in the present, we're going to understand the future. We're creating it right here, right now. Present reality, our present reality, reflects our past thoughts and deeds. And karma is reflected in the equilibrating function. In our body, in our personality, in our environment. Karma works through feelings. It works through feelings, just how do we feel about something. It works through our reasoning, and it also works through natural forces. Whatever needs to be done will be done to bring us into a new state of equilibrium. This is not always a pleasant experience. It can be really difficult, you know, to create a new view. And then a note about our biology. As Carolyn May said, and I really like the way she said this, our biography is our biology. Exactly. Because what happens is all of the things that we experience in our biography, many of the things we'll say, lodge in our bodies and become our bodies. Okay, so if we want to change that, we have to change our biography, who we think we are, and start moving in a new way. And how do we do that? And my feeling about this, I've been dealing with a lot of illness around me lately, like in the last year or so, and my feeling is the way that we're going to get over something is by going right through it, like into the heart of it. It's like giving birth. You're not going to be able to give birth unless you push right through the center of the pain, right through the middle of it. That's it. There's no way around it. So push through the middle, understand what it is. Yeah, one of my teachers always said, which kind of irritated me, but I get it, that this is Earth School, we're in Earth School. I mean, it's a little bit corny, but here we are in Earth School, and our Earth School is all about the conscious transformation of mind, of consciousness, and that's what karma is all about. It's about the transformation of consciousness. The karma card is overseen by Libra, air, the mind. The mind leads to transformation on all levels of being in spirit, heart, mind, and body. As I already mentioned, karma is the path between the 5s and the 6s. And I just want to note on the path between the 5s and the 6s. So this is the tarot card, the 5s, tarot cards of the 5s and tarot cards of the 6s. And the 5s are, karma is one of the ways out of the 5s when we're having a lot of difficulty, a lot of trouble. There are 3 other ways that appear on the tree of life that move out of the 5s. One of them is the Hanged Man, which goes between the 5s and the 8s, and that's about when we're having a great deal of difficulty, what we can do is remove ourselves from it and go into the power of meditation, basically. Just take ourselves out of it, meditate on it. One way out is, I already mentioned, strength, and that goes to the 4s, and in the strength, we'll use our will to rebuild. That's when your house gets blown down by the hurricane, and then you say, we're coming back with a vengeance, and then you rebuild. That's the path of strength. The other path, the 4th path, is the path of the Chariot, which leads into sphere number 3, and that's the sphere of the Divine Mother. And when there's no other way to go, what we can do is we can take that path of the Chariot into, you might say, the arms of the Divine Mother, who is the comforter, and just find comfort in wherever we are in that moment. A space of inaction, but a space of comfort. Okay, so those are the 4 ways out. And I also want to say, I want to add on that we don't have to follow the diagram on its specific ways of movement, because this is the diagram of the Tree of Life. When we're doing a tarot reading, what we see is anything could pop up. Anything. So 2 more ways out of the 5s that I want to throw in that I think are really interesting. This is pretty advanced, what I'm talking about in this lecture today. It's pretty advanced. So I've already done this other lecture on karma, and then I'm throwing in things which are just leaping around a little bit. But another way out is the path of the Hermit, and that's like move away in your consciousness completely, go into a hermit place, and hold a vigil. That's what the Hermit does. The Hermit just keeps a vigil. I'll put it that way. I'm making it really simple. And then another way out is leap over to the path of the Empress. And I was getting really excited about the Empress this week as I was thinking about it. When in doubt, create, imagine, make something up. Create something new. Give birth to something entirely new. Something you haven't even thought about before. And just leap onto the path of the Empress. So I was playing with that this week myself. I was leaping into the path of the Empress to change my karma for the future. And I started getting really creative and doing a lot of creative things. And then I could see, oh yeah, this is absolutely leading to my path for the future. I can see it. I can feel it. It's exciting. Okay. All right. The Hebrew letter for karma is called Lamed, Lamed. And Lamed is an ox goad. It means ox goad. And the ox goad acts like a sharp stick in the side, a goad. It's like it pushes you over, one way or the other, and gets you back on the path, like gets you back into the path. So our karma, when something's happening that is not on the path, is not on our path, and doesn't work for us, we're going to get edged back over. And so we just need to pay attention. We just need to listen to that and feel the ox goad moving us. By the way, the word halo that's a Greek word. And what halo is originally, has to do with the grinding of the grain again. And so the grain is ground in a central container, and what happens is the ox goes around and around and around, grinding, and the path that's made by the ox going in a circle, it's called a halo. Did you guys know that? It's called a halo.
No.
Yeah, and so that it has to do with staying on the path and attending to the grinding. I'm not. That sounds a little bit like animal torture, making the ox stay on the path. But the metaphor is the idea about staying on your path, and when you stay on it long enough, you come into a place of deep understanding and radiance. Keep moving on your path. Anyway, okay. Here is a way to move on this karmic path. Take vows for yourself. Know what is important to you. And yesterday somebody said to me, what does that mean? What are you talking about? Take a vow or take vows for yourself. And what I said to her was, I said, well, look, you are a priestess of the power of love, I said to her. And, and I'm a priestess of the power of love divine, where we want to bring love in our world, right? And I said to her, I heard you use the word compassion as you were talking about someone that you're having trouble with. And I said, the word compassion, the feeling of compassion is a way to operationalize the meaning of love, is to start practicing compassion. Okay, and one way I'm practicing love is by developing, as much as I can, a state of unity consciousness. Like, what does that mean for me? Unity consciousness. So when I see division, I try to look at how to bring it together. I was trying to see that when I just, in the last 2 weeks, I went to visit the border wall in 3 different towns, and just to experience what it was like in these 3 different towns. And I was thinking about unity consciousness, for example. But so if you know something that's really important to you, like compassion's really important to me, or unity consciousness is really important to me, or these 3 things are really important to me, here's a list. I'll give you a list. These are virtues: honesty, tolerance, forbearance, patience, humility, kindliness, sincerity, gratitude, forgiveness, service, those kinds of things, right? So if you know what's really important to you and you say, look, I want to live my life by this principle or these 3 principles or something. Don't get too many, because then it's hard to remember. But what are the top ones for you? And when you know what they are, you can say, you know what? I am going to take a vow, and I'm going to vow myself to fill in the blank, to live my life in gratitude, or I'm going to vow to live my life in service. Then that helps you karmically, because every time it becomes much more clear why things are going wrong, because it'll go against your deepest values. But if you actually take a vow to bring your deepest values to the surface, then you can remember, and like even get a ring, get your wedding ring, do a sacred marriage around it, and say, I am vowing myself to this principle, whatever it is. And that's all there is to it. I mean, you don't have to stick with that forever, by the way, just while it works. That's all, while it works. But it really helps to get on our path. and to stay on our path and not to be questioning all the time, why is this happening? Or why do things seem out of order? Or something like that. And by the way, that's all about practice. It's just practice. That's what they call spiritual practice. Spiritual practice, it doesn't mean it's a done deal. It doesn't mean you've mastered it in any way, shape, or form. It's just practice. Like the coach said on my son's baseball team, and I always remember him, where he said, son, there's no such thing as a perfect game, because there are too many variables, too many things happen. We can never be in control of it. But there is such a thing as perfect practice. Just devote yourself. That's it. And then your chances of playing a better game are higher. That's why we do the practice. And then the practice even becomes part of the game. It's all part of the bigger picture. The cosmic law of karma is that every cause in the universe produces an effect or a series of effects. Every action produces a reaction in a chain of events. All things in the universe are interrelated, and all things in the universe are going to tend toward balance and equilibrium. That's the law of karma. That is what the universe is seeking. So, in other decks, karma can also be thought of as justice, adjustment, or also justice, because karma is a law that functions consistently in dispensing justice. It is a chain of causation. And what it really means, as I mentioned earlier, is it just means action or deed. Every thought, every word, every deed is a seed that ripens instantly or over time. That's from Philip Kapleau, a Buddhist. Everything we think, do, and say impacts our lives and the life of the world every day. That's from Ernest Holmes. Everybody says the same thing. It's all the same. And it's because it's true. Once we have released something into the world, it keeps going. It never stops. I mean, it gets modified, but it never stops. We never are able to take it back. We're not ever going to take it back once it's released into the world. It keeps going. The spiritual path is about taking personal responsibility. And now, and we can segue into AA. This may require making a searching and fearless moral inventory, or taking a fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Yes. And then looking at what it is we want to create. Then we want to choose what for us is a moral road. And we're kind of afraid of this word, morality, because we don't want morality imposed on us. But I do think it's important for us to take a moral inventory of our own selves and decide if we're in good conscience, if we're living the life that feels like the life that we need to live. Is our life aligned, with our deepest principles? And if it's not, it's our responsibility to start to bring it into place. The huge realization here is that our fate, our destiny is not fixed. Cause and effect are dynamic. And once we realize that these things are not fixed, things are not as they seem, we can make dramatic changes. All being, all that is constantly becoming. If we want to overcome restrictions and limitations, this calls for meeting circumstances head on. It calls for a deep penetration into the depths of things, that we go deep into the substance of our lives and into this eventual realization. And part of the realization is going to be that things, in a certain sense, are perfect. They are whole. I mean, we can change pieces of them, but all these things exist for a reason around us. The reason is that karmically, something has been set in motion that resulted in some circumstance. So from that point of view, all that is in divine order, because it all is a result of that. And we ourselves, as cosmic beings, divine beings, can impact the way things are, and we have way more power than we think. All we have to do is change our routines, our roles, our routines, and our structures, and everything begins to shift. Now, this doesn't mean we're going to get off the hook for dealing with real things in our life. Back to Philip Kapleau. Kapleau or Kapleau? Sorry. Is it Kapleau or Kapleau? It just hit me. I think it's Kapleau. Okay. So Philip Kapleau, so he's the Buddhist, and he tells this little story. A disciple asked the master, when cold and heat come, how can we avoid them? The master answers, why don't you go to a place where there is no cold or heat? Disciple, where is the place where there is no cold or heat? Master, in winter, let the cold kill you. In summer, let the heat kill you. That's it. That's the end. That's how you go to a place beyond cold and heat. In other words, we still have to deal with it. We have to deal with the cold. We have to deal with the heat. There are things that we have to walk through. You know, that's part of the path. And overcoming what appear to be restrictions. That's like, what do you do when the power goes out and you have no internet for 3 days? I mean, this is a fate worse than death for people who live in Silicon Valley, right? Okay. But the idea is to face our circumstances, to embrace them head on, and to understand them deeply. The way out is the way in. To get over it, we have to go through it. Okay, transcending. I like that idea of, we're going to transcend it, but also we're going to end the trance that tells us that this is just the way it is. That's why we've got to get the bird's eye view or something like that to get a new vision. Our challenge is to assimilate all of our experience, to take it in and to work with it, to face all our experience. And when we can face up to it, we can be redeemed. Redemption involves the ability to face up to the true situation within ourselves and to have a willingness to change. This can require, again, ruthless honesty, discernment, courage, intention, and aspiration. In Buddhism, they talk about the Eightfold Path to move through this. Right views, right aspirations, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right meditation, right rapture. Of course, the big question there is, what is right? Because that takes us back to ourselves, and that's a judgment call. Because what is right for one person may not be right for the next person. So we're continually working with that. So the doctrine of karma, this idea of cause and effect, it's very, very personal. It becomes very personal. What we believe and how we're going to shift it. The process is continuous. The process is relentless. And it's what we do here on this planet as spiritual students, is we're continually working this path. There is a relationship here with karma to the Egyptian goddess Maat, M-A-A-T. She is the one who works with the idea with the scales. that are related to Libra, and Libra oversees karma. Is your heart as light as a feather? And that's the measurement. Is your heart as light as a feather? And in Egypt, when you died and went through your questioning with the 42 gods and goddesses, you had to be able, in order to achieve eternal life, you had to be able to know that your heart is as light as a feather. If it's not as light as a feather, it's going to get fed to the jackals, and that's the end of the tale. So when they ask you, the 42 gods and goddesses, have you stolen? Have you killed? Have you lied? Have you stolen mortuary offerings, which was a really big one back in the day? Do not steal mortuary offerings. Those are there to help the dead, right? So have you done any of these things? You have to be able to answer, no, I haven't, I'm innocent. Okay, but what if you have? Okay, that's karma. That is working it out. So through your path, you've worked it out to such a point where you can get to a point where you can say, I understand now why one does not steal mortuary offerings. I have come to that place. And then they say, good. Is your heart light? Yes. That's the answer. My heart feels light now. Yeah, I did it, but that was a long time ago, and I worked it all through. Okay. All right. So that's really what it's about, and all of this work. Okay. Let's see what else I want to mention to you about karma. Oh, maybe past lives. Maybe there's such a thing as past lives. Maybe it carries forward. A lot of people now are doing ancestor work, releasing things that they might be carrying from their ancestors, for example. So it could be in our DNA. There could be karma in there's definitely karma in our socialization. We receive a lot of karma. You don't even have to go to past lives to look at it. And so it takes some work to also release that for ourselves, to free ourselves from who we think we are and who we have been. That's part of what I've been working with, by the way, with the unity consciousness. Because a lot of who we think we are from our past can define us, set us apart, create our identity, and then create division. We're comfortable with the division. What happens when we start letting go of the division? It becomes very interesting. So that's part of what I'm working with karmically. Karma can free us into a state of revolution within our own being. And as they say, too, we can even transcend another revolution on the wheel. That means like another life, if we understand our karma. That's what some people believe in, primarily in the East, when they're talking about karma. It's transcending the wheel. Karma is called the faithful intelligence. There's an intelligence associated with every one of these cards, and karma is the faithful intelligence. And the faithful intelligence tells us all tends toward justice and wholeness. The faithful intelligence tells us that there are unfailing workings of the divine law of cause and effect. There is an absolute balance inherent in the universe. Cosmic justice, which is exacting, and that's because of all the things that are set in motion karmically in the universe. And through faith, the soul begins to achieve its true destiny and begins to escape from the shadow side of karma. The faithful intelligence is the intelligence by which spiritual virtues are increased. And I already talked about that idea of sticking with certain principles or sticking with certain virtues to help us move into a higher form of karma for ourselves. Okay. Key for us is setting our intention. Intention is very much it's very important in our lives that we set our intention for what we want to happen, what we want to do. Okay. I'm flipping through some cards here in case there's anything else I want to say, anything that's left out. Just keep in mind that with every breath we are born anew, with every heartbeat, every beat of the heart, we are resurrected. And now let's just take a moment to look at the symbology on the card. I didn't mention first, I also want to mention it's number 11. I said that over and over and over. Okay, so the numerology on the number 11 is that 11 is a 1 plus 1, and 1 plus 1 reduces, as they say, to 2. So number 2 is the High Priestess. So Karma and the High Priestess are connected numerologically, and I love the connection here because the High Priestess is holding the Akashic Records, the scroll. She's pointing to your name and she's saying, here you are in the book of life. This is your moment. This is your time. This is your time to write your chapter in the book of life. Are you going to step up? Are you going to step into it? And Karma's asking you, what is what's your chapter title in the book of life? Here's your name. Here's your chapter. What are you going to call it? How are you going to write it? This is your moment. Karma is also related to number 20. And 20, all three of those are related. It's a 2. So the number 20 in Tarot of the Spirit is resurrection. And this is the place of moving to a different level, following your calling, moving up into the off-world view or the bird's eye view, moving up out of the division or separation of pairs of opposites that would be potentially conflicting or with some kind of tension, uniting that and rising up unified and healed, parting the veil into the mystical experience, and then moving through that into another dimension, following your higher calling. That's the path of resurrection. And it is also related to karma, that there is a higher calling that we can follow and that we can rise up into. So the priestess, karma, and resurrection are all related. And then this is the card of karma that I'm showing you, and the way the symbology of this card is it's centered on the middle pillar on the tree of life. It's very green and all this floral energy for newness that is going to come about. It's spinning around and around and around like a dancer. This is the dance of karma. And when we overlay the tree of life pattern on the karma, we see that the wing-like shape in the middle intersects right in number 6. The number 6 is a sphere of enlightened consciousness, basically. And that's where karma is taking us in this ever-moving dance that keeps righting itself and moving right back to the center. Right in the middle of the sphere of dot, which is the sphere number 11, the secret sphere on the tree of life, there's a heart on the karma card and a feather. So the feather indicates transcendence and the heart indicates the faithful intelligence and the love, and that we can go forward. Okay, that brings up one other thing I want to mention about karma, and that would be the relationship to the mystery card, because the mystery card in Tarot of the Spirit represents the secret sphere number 11 on the tree of life. Karma's number 11. And then this, the mystery card, represents a journey, a deep cosmic journey into the unknown, into another dimension that you can only take by yourself. You may find guides along the way, invisible guides from other dimensions, but you can really only go there alone. Like say if you went on a vision quest, here's an example. You can go out on a vision quest You can have somebody, a teacher, who sends you out, who maybe gives you something to meditate on. But the experience only you can have. Only yourself. You're only going there alone. So that has something to do with this. So with this mystery card is going into this deep experience. A lot of times we get catapulted into a really deep experience when we're facing, well, for example, if we have a near-death experience, that would be one thing that is going to catapult us into, whoa, what is happening here? What is going on and how am I going to move through it? And a lot of times when we have experiences like that, that's when we get the deep connection of those values, those principles, those things that are really important to us. When we have a heart attack, what is the last thing we think about before we pass out? What are we thinking about? That's going to guide us somehow. If we come out on the other, if we come out on the other end, that's going to guide us somehow. That's not funny. I'm not laughing. Okay. But there we go. So illness can really guide us. Anything else you notice about this card that any of the...
It's spinning around a number 2 pencil.
Oh, that's so funny. It's spinning around a number 2 pencil. Okay, so we definitely have pencils on the side of the card, colored pencils, and it looks like a number 2 pencil, which cracks me up. It isn't. I swear, I've never seen that before. It is a number 2 pencil. Okay, so, but we definitely have colored pencils on the side, and that's for the creativity that goes along with this card. So get your pencils out, get your art supplies out, start getting things moving and start taking it to another level. Start writing a new story. Start bringing it to center. What else do you see? Anything else?
The 8.
The 8.
Of infinity.
Right. The limnus gate, the infinity coming right at the center in number 6. That enlightened consciousness, and then this radiating out, the connection of above and below being brought together. All this, the beautiful color from the above, and then the black and white from the below, and all meeting on the middle path of the tree of life.
Is that the black and white that's also in the High Priestess card,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the High Priestess card, so when we look at the floor, that's the Masonic checkerboard floor, actually. And when we look at it in the High Priestess, we see that it looks like squares, and when we look at it in the Karma card, it looks like diamonds.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it shifts from squares to diamonds, it means the energy is really moving. So another note about that checkerboard floor is when you look at the priestess and you look at Karma, you see that there are kind of blue stripes running through the floor. Okay, what those blue stripes are, that is a river, and that is the stream of consciousness. So the stream of consciousness is moving through both of these cards. And in the case of the High Priestess, she has her bare feet on the stream of consciousness. That means she's completely connected to the stream as it's flowing. And Karma is where we're creating the stream.
Akashic records, which look black and white, like symbols on white, that flows into the black and white checkerboard. Is there a connection between the Akashic record and the checkerboard floor?
Definitely, because because it is a stream of consciousness created by what goes into the book of life. So if we back up into, here's your name, what chapter are you going to write? You're creating the path of the future. And you are actually creating the stream of consciousness by the way you live your life. And, when I say what chapter are you going to write, don't interpret that literally like you have to write something, but it's with everything you think, do, and say, right? Everything. That's your chapter. It's the way that you're living. Okay, so this may not apply to everybody, by the way, but it does apply to spiritual students. And we are all spiritual students. And so that is our path, to think about this. Yes?
It's reflected in the sky in different colors, too, that diamond path. It's in blue and purples,
Right.
radiating upward.
The blue and the purple has also to do with the chakras, the chakra system. So like the chakras go right down the middle, and the purple chakras, that's like the enlightened energy of the crown chakra. And the blue, and we see a lot of the blue in the priestess is the throat energy. and the speech, the power of speech, or the power of emission. Let's call it emission.
I see like the two pillars, the pencils that you mentioned
Mhm.
before, like Joaquin and Boaz, or like
Yeah.
Hakma and Bina. What about the circles where they point and are balancing on each other?
Okay, so how do those come together? And then every one of these cards is painted on a diagram of the tree of life. So if we look and we see where does it come together, they're coming together right in the middle of the path of the Hanged Man and the Wheel of Fortune. And so it's interesting, like we're going to center ourselves in the middle of the Wheel of Fortune, and we're also going to center ourselves in the flow. It's the flow of consciousness of the Hangman. If you look at the Hangman too, you're going to see a flow of energy that moves through a stream of consciousness going right through the body. So we center ourselves in the middle of the stream of consciousness. Excuse me. Stream of consciousness and the Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah. So I see this under the heart. It almost looks like a little beetle or that black object, a little shield or a little skeleton or...
Let us look at the black object
It almost looks like
that we have never seen before.
It looks like one of those little Egyptian scarabs kind
Scarabs,
of
yeah,
things, kind
beetle
of.
or, yeah.
That's the symbol for synchronicity.
Mhm.
Unionism.
I have never seen that as a scarab before. I think you guys are right. I think it is a scarab, and it's got a Masonic symbol above it too. Mm-hmm.
Where's the Masonic
Pushing the
symbol?
sun. It's
In
the
red
triangle, the diamonds. It's the diamonds above it. And you know, my mom painted these cards. Okay, so my mother is also into, has been, was, and will be into mystical writing. So you see a lot of mystical writing that needs to be deciphered on the cards, like for example in the Akashic records. Okay, what is that mystical? What is the mystical writing, and what is it trying to tell us? And so then it's up to us to decipher it. All right. Anything else that comes up about the karmic card? What do you see?
Sorry. The these kind of petal-looking things here.
Mm-hmm. The
Kind
petals, like under the wings-ish.
Well, this is like,
or part
it
of the
looks
wings.
like wings, like almost like when the beetle opens its wings. It's like from but from the inside. Like if you were inside the beetle, that would be what the inside of the wing would look like when it was open.
Inside the wings. So just imagine yourself as a scarab, and those wings look like. Just to clarify, they sort of are like dragonfly wings, right? Because there are two above and two below in a way. And you can just feel the energy of standing inside. And by the way, yes, that is the whole object, is to stand inside of each one of these and become it, and be it, and become it. And there's a tremendous amount of power
There's a lot of power
that
in
resides
part,
with us.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, anything else that comes
It's
up?
like the power that drives the universe.
It's the
So
power.
It's pretty
It
intense.
is the power that drives the universe. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question about like all the colors that are spinning around in the green, and then also these, I think you called these wings all the colors, almost like confetti.
Mm-hmm.
How about those little spots of colors?
Right. Okay, so I believe right now, okay, again, these cards are up for your own interpretation because they're abstract, right? But I believe that the intention behind all the colors is those are all the possibilities that can fly out into the universe, all the new possibilities that can be born through us when we stand in the middle of that. You could, if you're looking at those as wings, that was a slip. If you're looking at it as wings, this would be like the matter inside, like the eggs that is getting ready to fly out into the universe. And we have a lot of power there in terms of creating and then letting it fly, spinning it out, spinning it right off of we're the dancer, I'm the dancer, right? So I spin it right off of my costume and it goes right out into.
So this is the mill.
It is the mill. It is. It's the mill. I'm yelling. It's the mill. It's the emolument. It's the mill. It's grinding, and the grain is, the chaff is falling away, and the grain is falling into the bin. And we are walking the path of the halo. We're walking the path, and we're staying on the path with our highest values, and we're letting the ox goad move us over, into the place we need to be. Is that exciting? I don't know. Okay. Yes.
But
Okay.
instead of flour, it's glitter.
Glitter. It's glitter. It's glitter.
It's glitter for everyone.
We're tossing the glitter. I love it. Okay.
I think the designers, Mackenzie Childs, ripped all off. Do you know that designer?
Mackenzie Childs?
Because they
No.
do things that look exactly
I
like
haven't seen it. I'll have to check it
show
out.
you later.
Definitely. Okay, you guys, be your own designer. Be your own designer. Karma. May I respond with fluidity to change. This is out of Kabbalah and Tarot of the Spirit. May I respond with fluidity to change. May I refine my energy spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. May I respond with inspiration. May I respond with love. May I respond with reflection. May I respond with illumination. May I be guided by conscious evolution. May I be empowered by faith. May the dance of karma ever continue. May I move in joy to the rhythms of the dance. May I open to receive the key of karma. And there we come to an end for this moment.
It's like the battery.
The battery.
Battery.
The battery.
It is like the battery.
The
That
battery.
goes-
Like the battery in the blackout. All right, let the dance begin.
Woohoo!